It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will be back on Monday live from Washington, D.C. In the meantime, you can take part in the show at 855-400-SAVAGE. Check out michaelsavage.com for all of the latest news, headlines, and updates. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be sitting in for Dr. Savage today. I'm along here with Team Savage. Man, there is a lot going on a Friday. Never a dull day during the days of President Trump and his administration and the enemies from within and the enemies around him trying to take him down. And it seems that the tide is turning. So much happening out there pertaining to this fraud of an investigation, which is a waste of all of your time. It's a waste sometimes of airtime, I think, to talk about it. But now we have some fresh news, red meat, center of the meat, if you will, that just was coming about within the last 24 hours. We have the Comey memos coming out, which those things just boggle my mind. And we have a referral to prosecute Andrew McCabe, the former deputy director of the FBI. Now, if you remember, way back in the day, which was just a few months ago into last year, it all came out with the FBI lovebirds, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. They were having an adulterous affair, and they were texts that came out that were never supposed to see the light of day. That is the thing. The Comey memos were never supposed to see the light of day. All of those texts between Page and Strzok were never supposed to see the light of day. That was the wrinkle in their plan that never worked. But those texts said that they needed an insurance plan in case President Trump was actually elected. Candidate Trump was actually elected. Well, he was, and they talked about it in quote-unquote Andy's office. And now there is a DOJ watchdog has sent a criminal referral for Andrew McCabe that he face charges, that he be prosecuted, okay? They have found that McCabe misled investigators. We know that he lied under oath at least 3 times. And they're asking a top official prosecutor for the D.C. to examine whether he should be charged. I do think you're going to see somebody like Andrew McCabe at the very least be charged and go down because, well, who is Andrew McCabe? He's not Hillary Clinton. He's not Loretta Lynch, the first black female attorney general. These people, although they were named in a letter the other day, 11 Republican congressmen also sent a criminal referral for 11 people, many of whom we're talking about now. Too big to go down in a sense, too symbolic in the case of Loretta Lynch. And of course, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are not going to be touched. But when you look at an Andrew McCabe, when you look at a James Comey, who we're going to get to more extensively in a few minutes, and you look at a Peter Strzok and a Lisa Page, these are people who are expendable. These are people who can go to jail. And what I'd like to know to you, the listeners of the Savage Nation, is now that McCabe is possibly facing prosecution, we know he lied under oath 3 times. Comey, the memos come out. Those memos have revealed that he has lied under oath back in a testimony of March of 2017 when he implied, didn't say it directly, he implied that President Trump had asked him to make the Russia investigation go away. Well, in his own writing now, we find out that that is not true. If anything, it is quite the opposite. President Trump, in Comey's own handwriting, says that he wants him to investigate members of the campaign if it is found that any wrongdoing was done pertaining to any Russia collusion, and I quote, including people close to me. This is earth-shattering. This is huge. This is the biggest day in this case since the case began, to be quite frankly. The rest of it was all smoke and mirrors. It was all window dressing and hopeful thinking on the part of the left and the corrupt vermin in the media who are trying to bring down Donald Trump. And let's face it, James Comey on his book tour, for which, of course, he's going to make millions of dollars, going to friendly sources like Colbert and CNN and MSNBC and others, isn't coming off as likable, even by people who want to be sympathetic to him. That's why he went to all of these softball places, NBC, MSNBC, ABC, kicks it off with George Stephanopoulos, the inch-high private eye. I think that guy's about 4'11". Imagine a picture of him standing next to Comey. Comey's like 6'7". Even even Savannah Guthrie, who is just known for fluff and smiles and, kind of being an attractive woman on TV, not much more. I don't know her personally, but that's her character she plays on the news. She even went after Comey, saying that his book has come off as catty. That's her word. And others have gone after him as well. But in his tour, he's not coming off as likable. And that is very detrimental. No one's going to read a book for someone that they don't like. But let's face it, obviously, the people who support our president, President Donald J. Trump, as I do and have since the beginning, we're not going to like Comey, okay? Because we know what he's doing behind the scenes, trying to undermine the president. And then by doing that, he's undermining the country and he's undermining us. The Hillary people hate him. Okay, so he's got to thread the needle on who his target demographic is if he's going to want to sell books. Listen, James Comey, if you want to learn how to sell books, you take a page from Dr. Savage and do it the right way. You got to be likable before people are going to buy your books. So that's what's going on. Each interview isn't about the book. Each interview is about the interview before and things he said there. The book is kind of becoming just a premise to talk to him, but a sideshow. No one even is talking about what's in the book. It's about what he said to Stephanopoulos. Then it's about what Savannah Guthrie said to him. Then it's about what he said on The View, which was, I'm not political. And then his comments, what he's saying in his book, contradict what Andrew McCabe has been saying. So it's a case of he said, and in the case of Comey, it's a case of Comey versus Comey, like spy versus spy. He said. It's like Comey's contradicting himself. Under oath, compared to what he is saying now, are two different things. So my question to you is, what does the DOJ criminal referral of McCabe mean? I mean, has the Russia probe backfired on the FBI and the Democrats? Think about it. All roads lead back to Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Loretta Lynch and James Comey and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and Rod Rosenstein and who's that? Bruce Orr and his wife who worked for Fusion GPS. So, and has Trump been cleared since he's been told he's not a target? Or is it a trap being set for him? Rod Rosenstein had issued a statement the other day. It was covered all over the place, New York Post and everywhere, that the Deputy Attorney General told the president that he wasn't at this point a target of the special counsel Robert Mueller and the investigation into Russian collusion. Is he trying to make the president be more complacent? Is this a trap? Are they trying to make him say, well, they got nothing on me. They tell me they're not even investigating me, to lure him into the lion's den, so to speak, so that he's willing to then sit down with Mueller? Quite frankly, I think the only questions the president should ask are in written form, given by the investigators, Mueller and his team, and then he can sit down and answer them in time with his lawyers present so that he doesn't jeopardize himself. Because, listen, I think Donald Trump is doing a great job. I love off-the-cuff Trump. I love him when he's not reading from a script. When he's reading from a script, sometimes he sounds like he's got the flu. But when he's off the cuff, when he made the joke the other day, and he's paying his condolences to Barbara Bush, and he honors them for 73 years of marriage, and then he says at the end, I'll never beat that record. It's stuff like that the speechwriter didn't write, and that's the part that people like about him. That's the part that people love because it's honest and it's genuine. But off-the-cuff Trump, under oath, with a special prosecutor, could get himself into a lot of trouble. So as much as I love off-the-cuff Trump, we don't want him being out there. And I don't trust Rod Rosenstein. I would think that the possibility exists that it is a trap being set for him. But now at this point, as this house of cards begins to crumble, what do the Democrats hope to accomplish with what came out today? There's a DNC lawsuit out there. I have it in front of me right now. I mean, they're going after everyone. They're suing the Russian Federation, the general staff of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. They're suing Guccifer. I mean, they're going right down the line. Julia Assange, WikiLeaks, Donald J. Trump for president, not Donald J. Trump. It must be noted that President Trump's name is not named in this DNC lawsuit today that came out against the names that I'm reading here. You do have Donald J. Trump Jr., you have Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Jared Kushner, George Papadopoulos, Dick Gates, and others. So what is this case for? I have the table of contents here alone is 19 sections. So it's a bunch of legalese that we're not going to get into. So on a day after the Inspector General recommends prosecution charges against Andrew McCabe, and during the course of which James Comey is on his book tour, which may be selling a lot of books, but is slowly becoming a public relations nightmare, and on the day after the Comey memos come out, which basically prove that James Comey is a liar, lo and behold, Friday afternoon, the DNC sues all of the aforementioned people. How convenient. It's a distraction. It's a distraction to try to take the headlines away from the truth. And as their case crumbles, what do they want from this DNC case? They wanted headlines. And they had them all morning. But now, as we head into the Savage Nation and your calls, the new headline on Drudge is DOJ probes Comey over classified info. The DNC lawsuit is gone. So they got their headlines for a few hours, and now it's happening. And with that headline I just mentioned to you, I have one more question for you. Will Comey face any type of prosecution from releasing classified information, or will he skate like Hillary did? 855-400-SAVAGE. My name is Lou Pate, in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back on Monday. He's going to be broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., and I encourage you to check out michaelsavage.com for all of the latest headlines. Your calls, your opinions, coming up next here on the Savage Nation. It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate sitting in for Dr. Savage. He will return on Monday, and he'll be broadcasting live from Washington, D.C. In the meantime, go to michaelsavage.com, and you can check out all of the headlines there. We're talking about James Comey. We're talking about McCabe. We're talking about the new center of the meat, fresh pickings in relation to this witch hunt, this attack, this hoax, which I have been saying here on the Savage Nation since its inception. Now, well, not the inception of the Savage Nation, but since the investigation started, that there's no there. There's no crumbs. I can give you a flashback if we had them handy and available. And now it seems to be coming to fruition. Comey on the trail, pushing his book, and the investigative general recommending criminal charges. 11 congressmen recommending criminal charges. Let's get to the phones. Mike, WMAC in Georgia. Welcome to the Savage Nation with Lou Pate. How are you? Hey, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. The hypocrisy of the left is just appalling to me. You've got their lies contradicting one another now. And, the lying to the FBI is about the only thing Mueller has going, and they compare, when you attack Mueller, you can't attack him. He's a war hero. What did they do to Mike Flynn? Was he not a war hero? I haven't heard you talk about that. But it's just...
Let me tell you this, Mike. You have to remember, the charges against Lieutenant General Flynn of lying, I mean, come on, all of Washington, D.C. would be charged if lying was really a crime. And even the charges against Paul Manafort are designed to squeeze information out of them to get to Donald Trump. But what they have realized is that there's no information to squeeze. So these guys aren't talking because they don't have anything to give. So they don't really want to throw Manafort in jail for 37 years. They don't want to throw Flynn in jail. They wanted information and trade, but there's nothing to trade for. Now it kind of hit them in the face.
I know, it's crazy. And Trump, they want to get Trump so bad that they want to get him and interview him to trap him. Exactly. That's exactly what they're trying to do. And he wants to do it so bad. You're like, but no, come back. Don't do that. Because, that's the whole thing. That's all it's focused on doing.
So as much as it's backfiring, Mike, you do think it is a trap. You don't think they've, in their minds, have cleared him, that they're trying to lure him in?
I think they are. I really do. And trying to get him on something petty, All
right. No, well said. Well said. Thank you for your call. Do appreciate it. Get him on something petty, a slip of the tongue. Well said, Mike. Let's go to Doug at WABC in my old hometown. How we doing, Doug?
Hey, how you doing? My name
All right, let's go to Cliff at WFTW, Fort Walton Beach. How we doing, Cliff?
Doing all right.
What's up?
At first, when I heard about this lawsuit today, I thought, oh, man, these people are reaching. Really? Then I got to thinking about something. Remember that Democratic server that was supposedly hacked, and they wouldn't turn it over to the FBI? They only let their own people check it?
Yes.
This lawsuit is going to make them have to prove. If they're going to try to win this lawsuit or keep this lawsuit in court, they're going to have some facts, some evidence.
And, you know, that's a brilliant point, Cliff, and I agree with you on that, but I don't think they still have any intention of turning over that server. I just think that this lawsuit is being used as a headline grabber this morning. And for those who don't know what Cliff is talking about, the DNC is suing everybody from WikiLeaks to Donald Trump Jr. to even Guccifer 2.0. But that was to try to distract from everything that we're talking about here, Cliff. So I don't think they ever think it's going to go that far down the road. It'll be years. But excellent observation. I like the way you think. We'll take a quick break. Lou Pate here with you on the Savage Nation. Dr. Savage will be back live from Washington, D.C. on Monday. You are listening to The Savage Nation. It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will be back on Monday, but it's going to be a show unlike any other show because he's going to be live from Washington, D.C. And in the meantime, now and after the show, go to michaelsavage.com for all of the latest headlines. But I encourage you to take part in the action right now at 855-400-SAVAGE, talking about the criminal reference from the Inspector General about Andrew McCabe, talking about the Comey book tour, and now the Comey memos, which pretty much show a collusion of lying, if you will, here. And Comey has contradicted McCabe. Comey has contradicted himself. Rosenstein says that Trump is not a target of the investigation. So with all of this that has just come out in the last 24 hours, on top of everything we already know, has Trump been cleared since he's been told he's not a target, or is it a trap being set for him by these people? Because I don't trust these guys as far as you could throw them. They've all broken laws. McCabe has lied under oath 3 times, 4 times total. We're only touching scraping the tip of the iceberg of what Comey's lies and possible crimes are. We already know he's lied under oath as well. Same goes for all of the other players, big and small. But could they be trying to make Trump be complacent? Because today he was on Twitter. Capitals, wow, no collusion. He's a very happy man today. Could they be luring him in? And what does the DOJ criminal referral that I just made about McCabe mean? Has the Russia probe backfired on all of these players, the FBI and the Democrats? I think it most certainly has. 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-SAVAGE. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that at least 2 of the memos that former FBI Director James Comey gave to a friend outside of the government contained information that now is being considered classified. That's a crime, all right? So of those 2 memos, Comey himself, he redacted elements of one that he knew to be classified to protect secrets before he handed over the documents to his friend. But still, he has still given other information that could be considered classified. So now the Justice Department Inspector General is now conducting an investigation into classification issues related to the Comey memos. So could Comey now be facing prosecution? We all warned him. I was actually hoping he would go out. I thought he'd have to have the worst lawyers in the world or the worst public relations people in the world to, while this was all still active and he being a major principal, to go out on a book tour. It's just dumb. It's lacking in common sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. So again, could this be a setup? And that's according, although what I just told you, according to the Wall Street Journal. So is this a trap for Donald Trump, or does it clear him? And but not only what does the criminal referral for McCabe mean, might Comey face prosecution? In your opinion, should he? 855-400-SAVAGE. Let's go out to Lake Tahoe. Breck, KKOH. How are you?
I'm doing okay. We're finally going to get some good weather.
Okay. Well, good for you there. I'm in Florida. We get it all the time. But welcome to the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
Well, the one thing I haven't heard anybody bring up, if Russia wanted Trump to get elected, okay, there must have something in it for them. What has he done for them? Let's see. The only thing that he's done for Russia is he's bombed their buddy in Syria twice. He hasn't done anything, whereas Hillary did all sorts of great stuff for Russia, like get them uranium.
The Uranium One deal is another investigation. But let me ask you this, Breck, I'm not disagreeing with you, but why do you say Russia wanted Trump to be elected? Because we know through her actions as Secretary of State that Hillary Clinton can be bought and paid for. She was selling influence allegedly while she was there. Wouldn't it be easier for them? Because they took advantage of her when she was Secretary of State. They manhandled Barack Obama all over the international map while he was in office. Why would they look at Trump? Because, like what you said, he bombed a buddy in Syria twice now. He's been tough on them in his own words. Not exactly somebody that I'd want in there. I'd rather have the people I could take advantage of, like a Hillary Clinton, if I'm Russia.
Well, you just perfectly made my point. There's no reason they would want him in there. None at all. So this whole thing about Russia colluding to get Trump elected is ridiculous. They would not want him there. And if he does everything they don't want, they would want Hillary.
Here's the thing, and you're right, but here's the deal. I don't think they thought this. They thought Hillary would win. They've all said that. And I think they didn't think any of this criminal behavior, for lack of a better term, was going to come out. And that she would get into office and they would never have to use it. And obviously it is coming back to bite them. But thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Hope you enjoy that good weather. Let's go to my original hometown. Let's go to Norman at WABC. Norman, welcome to the Savage Nation with Lou Pate. How are you?
Thank you, Lou. Well, you just answered my question. I was going to say, yes, it did backfire because they expected Hillary to win. So my other point is, the biggest story in my lifetime, and I'm 75 years old, where were the Woodward and Bernsteins? If there was a reporter out there, he would have gotten a Pulitzer Prize, maybe even a Nobel Prize. But their hatred of Trump trumped a good story.
Norman, that is an incredible observation. Actually, an incredible question. Where are the Woodward and Bernsteins? If anything, it was the opposite, Norman. They went out of their way not only to hurt Donald Trump, but prior, they went out of their way to carry water for Barack Obama, cover up him spying on Sarkozy and Merkel and members of the Associated Press and weaponizing the IRS against conservative groups and so on and so forth down the line. And I truly believe this stinks to the highest level. I think, and there is evidence to show, such as Susan Rice's cover, CYA memos, that she happened to write, no, Barack Obama was not in the room. This is what we talked about, that type of stuff. Obama knew about all of this stuff going on. He knew about the wiretapping. He knew about the abuse of the FISA memo. He knew about the dossier, and he knew that it was fake, and he knew that where it came from. But it's coming back to bite them. It's really backfiring on them, all of it, because they never thought it would come out. And this is the most extreme example of absolute power corrupts absolutely, Norman.
Hey, Lou?
Yes.
Do you think the Attorney General has the cojones to go after the big shots?
No. I don't think he has the cojones to go after Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, or Loretta Lynch. And I say that with sadness, Norman. I like Jeff Sessions. I liked him as a senator. I want to like him as our Attorney General. But he appears, although to be a nice gentleman, he appears to be feckless as our Attorney General. Yes, he has the immigration lawsuit against the state of California. But aside from that, pertaining to this undermining of our presidency, the real meddling with our democracy, not Russia buying a couple of ads using fake PayPal names. The only crime there is truly identity theft, which is serious, but it's not exactly a threat to our democracy there. Michael, WABC, welcome to the Savage Nation with Lou Pate. How are you?
I'm doing good, Lou. I mean, you used the word backfire a few times. I want to pick up on that.
Sure.
I really believe that when the fruits of Mueller's investigation are known, this is going to take a nasty turn towards the Democrats. And I want to point out something that no one is talking about, but it's a fact. It was reported in the New York Times, Washington Post. But Tony Podesta, one of the biggest lobbyists, the brother of John Podesta, who's a right-hand man of Hillary and Obama.
Right.
This guy's lobbying firm was shut down.
Yeah, but it was shut down like in a day. It wasn't like they announced that they were shutting it down and they had a party at a fancy restaurant. It was like, I forget the incident that happened. I'm drawing a blank on it, but when you brought it up, though, there was something happened in this investigation, and then they shut it down that day, non-existent. I mean, truly incredible. Boy, what were they hiding, and what was shredded and bleach bitted then?
This was Mueller who did this. Mueller is going after big-time Democrats. And Podesta, if you look into his background, there's a whole lot of
but thank you for your call. We don't know about that. What we know about John Podesta is that he is a Hillary Clinton soldier, and that is an insult to real soldiers. We do know that he made $35 million in 2015 off of business dealings with Russia that he conveniently left off his application that he filled out, the paperwork, to become her campaign manager. So there's enough nefarious things without bringing up what you said. I don't want to stick our toe into a pond where there's no evidence. We'll keep it with the politics. We'll keep it with what we know. And there was no ramifications for him not disclosing the $35 million earned in 2015 on that paperwork. How come these people never have to answer for anything? Let's take it out west. Let's go to Dr. Savage's flagship in San Francisco, KSFO. Hey, Pat, you're on the Savage Nation. How are you?
Yes, sir. Having a little bit of experience myself on this issue, my rhetorical question is, where are the rest of the Comey notes? Now, as a supervisor and a department head, if he's going to keep notes and logs, he has the responsibility to apply the rules and procedures equally across the board. So where are the Obama notes? Where are the Hillary notes? Where are all the other notes that he should have kept? Now, if he just kept notes on Trump, that's discrimination.
Bingo. Hey, Pat, let me tell you something. You were just reading my mind, because the next thing I was going to bring up was there was a story that came out about key lawmakers are saying that Comey's memos show, and I quote, terrible judgment. And I'll read to you this. In a damning statement written by House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte and Trey Gowdy and also Devin Nunes, they accused Comey of showing political bias by having at least two different standards in his interactions with people. Now, Pat, they say this, and I quote, he chose not to memorialize conversations with President Obama, Attorney General Lynch, Secretary Clinton, Andrew McCabe, or others, but he immediately began to memorialize conversations with President Trump. End quote. I mean, they're already on to him, Pat, but I know you thought of that on your own, but there are no notes about his conversations with the aforementioned people, and it is a double standard. I don't know if it's discrimination, but it's definitely corruption, Pat.
Yeah, being involved in employee disciplinary hearings and employee discipline, that's what I was told by Human Resources, that if I didn't keep information on everybody and be able to turn that stuff in at disciplinary hearings, then I'm guilty of discrimination and Title VII violations.
Now, I'm surprised that we are even at this day, because the Comey memos came out late yesterday after the Savage Nation was off the air, and I'm surprised they even came out, but I don't think James Comey ever thought that they were going to come out. That's part of the backfiring that is happening. And now they talk about possible prosecution. I just said a breaking story in the Wall Street Journal, Pat, but what does the criminal referral of McCabe mean to you? And does this mean it is backfired? And does this clear Trump? And I want to ask you about the trap question. Do you think it's a trap?
Well, here's my rhetorical question. Do we have a justice system, or do we have a liberal just us system?
I like that. I'm going to use that one, Pat, but I'll give you credit. Hey, listen, these people don't think they're accountable to the law. But listen, I got to take a break, but thank you very much. I'm way over. Lou Pate here with you. This is the Savage Nation. Dr. Savage will be back on Monday. Go to michaelsavage.com for all of your latest headlines. This is the Savage Nation. Lou Pate sitting in for Dr. Savage. He will be back on Monday, and he's going to be broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., so that's going to be something you are not going to want to miss. In the meantime, you can dial us up at 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282, and, of course, go to michaelsavage.com for all of your latest headlines. We've been talking about the criminal referral into McCabe and what it means, and has the Russia probe backfired on the FBI and the Democrats, or is it now all a trap, a target, a trap set for Donald Trump so that he'll get complacent and put his guard down? So, and then there's that DNC lawsuit, which is, I feel, just a distraction for today. And will Comey face any charges? I've reported before, the Wall Street Journal is talking about that they are investigating whether or not he passed top secret information, which would be illegal. And I mentioned before, while talking about Jeff Sessions, I said he's kind of feckless when it comes to the whole Russia investigation, but I did cite that he does have that DOJ lawsuit against California. Just the other day, the county supervisors in San Diego voted 3-1 to be part of that lawsuit, which means San Diego County is not going to be a sanctuary county. But do you think the California cities can prevail in their lawsuit against the state's sanctuary city policies? We'll talk about that a little later. I don't know how they can't. I mean, it's in the Constitution that these sanctuary city policies are wrong, but that didn't stop a judge from stopping President Trump from halting federal money going to these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. It's like it's nuts what's going on out there. And sadly, in Gilchrist County in Florida, 2 police officers were ambushed yesterday, murdered while picking up lunch in a Chinese restaurant. In the Obama era, we saw a lot of anti-police rhetoric. We saw him send Attorney General Eric Holder to the home of Michael Brown, the man who tried to kill Officer Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri. We saw President Obama not take the sides of the Cambridge police officers, which led to the beer summit. We saw him criticize the investigation with Trayvon Martin, and then the famous, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. Cops being ambushed. Black Lives Matter. What do we want? Dead cops? When do we want them now? Is there a war on police in this country? We'll talk about that as well. Lou Pate here with you, sitting in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back Monday from Washington, D.C. You are listening to The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate sitting in for Dr. Savage. He will be back on Monday live from Washington, D.C. We're going to continue to take your phone calls at 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. In the meantime, while you're listening to the show, check out michaelsavage.com for all of your latest headlines. And remember, that's updated over the weekend as well, so you can always go to michaelsavage.com. We're going to get right back to your phone calls in a minute, but just want to ask about the situation with Andrew McCabe. It has been recommended that he face charges due to his lying under oath, amongst numerous other allegations. And what does the Department of Justice criminal referral of McCabe mean? And has the Russian probe backfired on the Dems and the FBI? And now we got Donald Trump celebrating today on Twitter about being cleared. Wow, no collusion. That's a quote. He's been told he's not a target of the Mueller investigation, but is that a trap to lure him in, to make him relax and maybe stumble? Because to commit perjury, you don't really have to fumble much. They can get stuff. Remember, they know everything, and you don't know anything of what they know going in. DNC came out with a lawsuit today. That was a distraction. They're suing everybody. Donald Trump Jr., WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, Russia, Donald Trump for President Incorporated, but not Donald Trump. That's the important part there. That's just a distraction. That was earlier today. But I'm going to add into the conversation the issue of immigration. California cities are now rebelling. We saw Los Alamitos and Aliso. They came out against the sanctuary city policy. These are small cities. You have Los Alamitos is only 11 or 12,000 people. Newport Beach, a little bigger, but not much. But now some of the big dogs are coming into play. San Diego County, way to the south, came in the other day. The county board of supervisors, their 4 people, voted 3-1 not to become a sanctuary county, and they are not going to enforce the state's sanctuary city policies. If you remember, the Attorney General of California, Xavier Becerra, threatened the sheriff in Los Alamitos that if he did not enforce the sanctuary city policies, he might arrest him. Imagine that. The state's top cop arresting a law enforcement officer? Amazing. Because the man is following the Constitution. Totally incredible. There was the undersheriff there at the time. And then we have now San Diego, part of this DOJ lawsuit that Jeff Sessions charged against Sacramento and California a few months ago. But the ACLU is going after Los Alamitos. Come on, it's a small city. 10, 12,000 the max. I mean, can California cities like that prevail in their lawsuit against the state sanctuary policy? It's not only Jerry Brown and the Attorney General going after him. You got the ACLU national office going after them. It just doesn't seem fair. So I'd like to know what you think about that with this whole deal of our supposed leaders who are taking an oath to protect and serve, choosing illegals over you. And then also a lot going on there. I'm asking you also, is there a war on police in this country? We saw Black Lives Matter in the era of Obama. I call Obama the cop killer president. That's me. That's not the Savage Nation. That is my opinion. Because obviously he's never killed anybody, but his actions have led to a boldness where it appears that people have no problem lashing out at police. And I don't mean just calling them names. I'm talking about like what we saw in Gilchrist County, Florida yesterday. 2 officers, one 30 years old, one 25 years old, getting lunch in a Chinese restaurant. Someone just shoots them through the window. 59-year-old man just executes them, assassinates them. And we've seen situations like this before where officers are just gunned down for no reason. It's sad whenever an officer is lost in the line of duty, but we've seen it with bank robberies, drug heists, and drug deals gone wrong. I've cited that many police officers lose their lives answering domestic violence calls. The numbers on that are appalling. But to be gunned down in the street, it has happened. We had the militant black groups back in the 70s. Now it seems to be happening again. I personally feel they've been emboldened by the rhetoric of former President Barack Obama, always taking the wrong side, never going on the part of law enforcement officers. We've seen it again with the Cambridge police when he took the side of Skip Gates. He said they acted stupidly. The most appalling is his actions of sending Eric Holder to see the family of Michael Brown, a man who tried to kill a cop, and then not taking the side of the Baltimore police officers, and then seemingly taking the side of the prosecutor there, the district attorney, and the mayor, who famously said, "Let them loot." She said it more in an Ebonics way, but I'm being kind here. So I ask you, the listeners to the Savage Nation, is there a war on police in this country? I say there is definitely an anti-cop sentiment, and the seed was planted by former President Barack Obama. So we have the Russia investigation, Comey, McCabe. Is Trump being set up so that he'll feel comfortable going to see Mueller? California cities, can they prevail against the state sanctuary city policy? And is there a war on police in this country? Let's get back to the phones. 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Bob, WABC, welcome to the Savage Nation. Thank you for holding.
How are you, Lou?
Hey, Bob.
How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. What's on your mind?
My point is, with this whole Russia investigation and collusion, nobody's looking at the bigger picture. That the Russians actually, after Trump got the nomination and all this stuff with the WikiLeaks and stuff about Hillary, stuff about Trump. Maybe he just did this to make both candidates illegitimate so that the country would run like it is now, not running. Everybody's focused on all the bull crap about,
I'll tell you what.
And it would have been the same thing if Hillary got elected, because you would have had all this information about what she did with Benghazi, what she did with Uranium One. So I just think it's a plot by the Russians just to make our country not run the way it should.
I think you're right and you're wrong. I think, number one, I do agree with you, Bob, at WABC that they are enjoying this. They are thoroughly enjoying this, but the best laid plans of mice and men, they could not have orchestrated this to work so perfectly. What is the maestro behind all of this is the corruption in the upper echelons of the Department of Justice and the FBI and right to the White House. In my humble opinion, I feel Barack Obama knew about the dossier. He knew about the wiretapping, as did Hillary Clinton. Heck, she was running the DNC at the time. But where I disagree with you, Bob, is that if Hillary had been elected, God forbid, if she had been elected, we wouldn't know anything about any of this. They wouldn't go after her on Benghazi anymore. They weren't going after her on Benghazi anymore anyway. And Russia would not have gone after her to plant stories about Uranium One because they were the huge benefactor there. 20% of their uranium, of our uranium, went to Russia. So they were the big winner in that, so they're not going to try to stir that one up again. On Russia's best day, on some propagandist's best day, they couldn't wish for what we are going through right now. No, this is homegrown. The Russia stuff is kind of child's play if you think about it. Stealing identities, which is a very serious offense, but stealing identities, opening up PayPal accounts, and buying a few $1 million worth of advertising is not exactly a propagandist's dream compared to what we're looking at now with the turmoil of the investigation and it's swirling out of control. But my question to you, Bob, is do you really think we would have heard about anything pertaining to wiretapping Uranium One or Hillary and Benghazi and illegal servers if she had won? Think about that. All right. Let's go. Let's cross the country back to KSFO. Bob, welcome to the Savage Nation with Lou Pate. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Lou. Thanks for taking my call.
And thanks for holding.
I'm a Trump supporter all the way, but I'm calling in for all those Bernie Sanders supporters who donated money to his campaign, which Hillary and the DNC manipulated. I think they ought to start a class action to recover the millions that were donated. In the Clinton Foundation, they should probably reimburse them. What do you think?
I don't think that's a bad idea, Bob, but I'll tell you this. When Bernie had a chance to stand up for himself, when it became clear to you and I and all of the Savage Nation listeners and the world that Debbie Wasserman Schultz, along with the permission of Hillary Clinton, had manipulated the Democratic votes and stolen the primary from him, he didn't stand up for himself. Just like at Westlake Center in Seattle, when the Black Lives Matter movement was in its infancy and those women went up there and yanked the microphone out of his hand, he didn't stand up for himself then. He didn't stand up for himself against Wasserman Schultz and Hillary Clinton when they stole the primary from him. What makes me think if he got to be president, he was going to stand up for us? Instead, Bernie Sanders made a backroom deal, I think. I'm alleging that he made a backroom deal with Hillary Clinton because it was Bernie Sanders who announced that she had gotten enough delegates, and it was Bernie Sanders who took the stage that night to announce that she was the Democratic nominee. I think that behind the scenes, Bob, they said, don't make a big deal about this. We'll make you Secretary of State or something like that, make you a cabinet member, whatever you want. But if you go out there and announce that I have the number of delegates and pushes me over the top, it's going to show unity and it's going to bring all of your voters on board. I think that's what happened. So on every occasion when Bernie had a chance to stand up for himself, he chose not to. So I doubt he would do it now. But, hey, a class action lawsuit, it could happen, but I wouldn't expect all of those folks who supported him I wouldn't have them hold their breath waiting for Bernie, Bob. What do you think?
Well, I think the supporters ought to go for it. Heck with Bernie. Bernie doesn't stand up for himself, like you said. Let the supporters start the class action. they're the ones that lost the money.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Bob. And in San Francisco, a lone voice out there at KSFO in the conservatives in San Francisco, very few and far between. Richard, WABC, welcome to the Savage Nation.
First of all, hello, Lou. Nice to talk to you.
Same here. Thank you.
Listen to the Savage Nation every day. And I just wanted to say, based on the history of Rosenstein, what he said and done in the past, that I would not trust the statement that he made. I would not give him any credibility on that statement.
You know, I know we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but you look at guys like Andrew McCabe, you look at guys like Rod Rosenstein, they just kind of look wormy, Richard, don't you think? You know, it's like not nerdy, not like a bookworm. They just look swarmy. They just look like little worms to me. They look like the type of guy who would stab you in the back if you turned around long enough.
The only thing I can say is based on what he's done and what he said and in his history, and coming out and saying something about Trump is going to be cleared or there's no criminal thing involved here, I would not trust his statement. I would not give him credibility.
Not at all. But I wouldn't fire him either, Richard, would you?
I'm not going to answer that, but, I think what Trump is doing, I think, he's exposing a lot of the corruption in Washington, and, I believe that the liberals hate that and they can't stand it because I believe that the liberals are the corruption.
I agree. Well said. And the reason I don't want him to fire him is because that's exactly what the left wants him to do. They want him to fire Mueller and they want him to fire Rosenstein so then they can claim, oh, he's got something to hide. Richard, WABC, thank you very much. Do appreciate it. We'll take a quick break. My name is Lou Pate, sitting in on the Savage Nation for Dr. Savage. He will be back Monday. Look at me. I'm already getting rid of the weekend. Back on Monday live from Washington, D.C. In the meantime, check out MichaelSavage.com for all the latest headlines. You are listening to The Savage Nation. Live from Washington, D.C. And remember, even after the show is over and over the weekend, you can go to MichaelSavage.com, get your latest headlines. It is updated all of the time. There's a lot on our plates here, and we want to invite you into the conversation at 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282, talking about the Russia probe. Has it backfired on the FBI and the Democrats? Or has Trump been cleared? And is this possibly is he being targeted for a trap by the Mueller investigation? Rosenstein, who one of the callers said, we don't trust him. I wouldn't either. So you're not a target of the investigation. And Trump rests on his laurels, gets a little complacent, maybe gets a little cocky, says, I'll go meet with Mueller. I'm not even a target. Boom. Next thing you know. But we're also talking about a couple of other topics. Is there a war on police in this country? 2 deputies assassinated yesterday in the area of Gainesville, Florida, Gilchrist County there. I do feel that in the era of Obama has planted the seeds for anti-cop sentiment where people have been emboldened to take on the police when they're not even in an altercation with the police. We also have MS-13 on Long Island, New York, putting out a contract to take out a cop in Hempstead. When have you ever heard of this? And this is in the era of Black Lives Matter, who famously marched through the streets of New York City saying, and I quote, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now." End quote. That is horrible. And now we hear about people like cop killer who killed a cop in San Francisco and then in 1971 killed 2 officers in New York, Piagentini and Jones. I know this because I went to the junior high school that was named after them, and I would see that their uniforms in the glass cases and their badges and nightsticks. And, I often thought about those gentlemen. And now, all of these years later, 46, 47 years later, I don't know what month they were convicted, the murderer of 3 police officers here in the United States was granted parole in New York. You would think from 1971, when a lot of the militia groups were out there, things would have changed. But here we are in 2018, cops are still being assassinated. I think Obama pressed the refresh button on people emboldened to take out police. That's my opinion. What's yours? This is The Savage Nation. Back to the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will return on Monday, but live from Washington, D.C. Who will he meet? What will he see? And he will share it all with you Monday on the Savage Nation, so be here. In the meantime, give us a call at 855-400-SAVAGE talking about the Comey memos and the Inspector General's referral that McCabe be prosecuted. Has Trump been cleared since he's been told he's not a target by Rod Rosenstein in the Mueller investigation? Or is it a trap set for him? We're also talking about the war on police in this country. Sadly, 2 Florida deputies assassinated while getting food in a Chinese restaurant. I know that the numbers, there have been 20 police officers, by the way, in 2018 killed so far in the line of duty. 20. It's only April 20th, and we are already at, with the inclusion of the 2 deputies from yesterday, 20 police officers. To me, that seems like a lot. The one is too many, but the national numbers show that there has not been an increase in law enforcement officers lost in the line of duty since the Obama era, but there seems to be an increase in the amount of cops who have been ambushed. There was a police officer a few years ago, I forget which, was it Missouri or Mississippi? He was pumping gas, filling up his cruiser, and someone came up behind him, killed him 11 times. I mean, targeting, police officers know that when they go out in the line of duty, they can be killed at any time. They know that. They sign up for that. And when you're having an altercation with people in society, anything can happen. Even if you're writing someone a traffic summons, anything can happen. But not since the 60s and into the 70s have we seen cops ambushed. In the 80s, there was the sad case of Eddie Byrne, a New York City police officer sitting in a car watching the house of someone who was going to testify against drug dealers in Queens, and 3 guys came up. They were caught. They're doing life. They shot him. The Byrne family famously gave his badge to President George H.W. Bush at the time. And here we are, 2018, and it's still happening, and seemingly with increased regularity. So is there a war on police in this country? 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Richard WTMA in South Carolina. Welcome to the Savage Nation. How are you?
Thank you, sir, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for holding. Now, I see you here are a retired cop. I commend you for your service on the job, as police officers say.
Well, thank you, sir. I haven't done it now a few years now. But I was going to mention that this war on police has been going on for quite some time, not so much as a war, but there's always been this underlying contempt among a sizable subculture in our society. And it was sort of subdued in the past, but now it's coming back. When I say coming back, I mean it's coming back to the level that it was back in the late 60s, early 70s, and even more so. Police have not only gangs to worry about and people who have contempt for the police and the mentally ill. There's also terrorists. And there's been a lot of disagreement on whether or not the military should be involved in providing surplus equipment, vehicles, weapons, and such to police. And our last president famously said that it was creating a militarization of our nation's police. And I don't believe that's the case. I think American police, more than any other police department in the world, are very citizen-centric. It was police who were behind the legislation to push for concealed carry by ordinary citizens back in the 90s and since 2000. And there's, at least in most states, I can't speak for the Northeast Corridor of California, but I think this is something that's been going on, and I think young people need to be taught at an early age, basically, that they are likewise part of our citizen-centric republic, and that police are part of it, they're a part of it. We're all part of this great experiment.
Well, I'll tell you what, Richard, people don't often look at police officers as part of our society. They don't realize that police officers have the right to go home too. Now, just quickly, Richard, where did you serve as a police officer and how many years?
Well, I served actually 17 years. I worked for the Office of General Counsel for the Department of Corrections in South Carolina.
Okay.
I was working with them for quite a while, and then I left. I'm also certified firearms instructor at the academy. I taught at the academy.
Right. No, I just wanted to get that out there where you had served there. But you touched on something. You said it was the 60s and 70s, as I said, but now it has been obviously killings in between. But there seems to be a resurgence. And I don't know if it's the anonymity of social media where people feel comfortable putting this stuff out there. I cited the case in Hempstead, Long Island, MS-13. There's a lot of problems in Long Island with MS-13 and the murder rate there. But one of its members had directed members to, and I quote, take out a cop. I mean, it's they even know who it is. They say it's a tall, light-skinned Hispanic man with a thin build and a tattoo of 3 dots next to his eye. They're looking for him there on Long Island, but it might. He wanted it to take place on Long Island, Richard, but it could take someone could take that MS-13 directive from this person and do it anywhere. Because actually, when I was preparing for the show today, and I came upon the story of the police officers who were murdered while having Chinese food, I thought this might have been connected. I want to make it very clear it was not connected. It was a 59-year-old male. But it makes you wonder if someone's trying to get some street credibility somewhere else and will take this up. It's terrifying.
So I think it's sort of a multifaceted threat. It's like I mentioned earlier. And it's not just gangs. It's the mentally ill. And when I say mentally ill, I'm not attacking everyone who has a diagnosis. There's a fringe to everything. I'm not even saying all gangs are cop killers.
Well, all gangs are criminals. But hey, Richard, we got to leave it there. I want to get everybody in, but thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Let's go back to WABC and Sharon. Sharon, welcome to the Savage Nation. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing okay. Where do you land on this?
Well, my thing is I was trying to put together, maybe you can help me say it better, but when I look back at like when I was younger and I'm 50, the respect that I had for my teachers and authority figures and everything was very high, and elders and everybody. And now today it just seems like these kids, they can do what they want in the schools, and the parents go and fly after the teachers. The teachers are afraid to look the wrong way anymore, and that'll grow them up into not even respecting, like, the police. And, these police are there to protect us. They'll call them for that, but yet they'll stab them in the back. And does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, Sharon. And I think what you're trying to say, although you said it eloquently, is when I was growing up, it was the same thing. I grew up in New York with you, and there was a respect/fear of the police, and even the teachers that were the friendly teachers that you liked. You didn't want to get in trouble with them and have them call your folks or end up in the principal's office. So it's respect, and that respect starts in the home, Sharon. Okay, and it's the disintegration of the family structure. It's the lack and less of faith in the house. There's a lot of faith out there. A lot of people have strong faith, be you Jew or Gentile, but faith does not seem to be a part of the home in many places like it usually. It's strong, depends on different parts of the country, depends on different parts of the community. The media would like you to think that we're becoming a secularist nation. I do not think so. They even point out the inner cities and say, black and Hispanics, they're Democrats, they're with us, and we're becoming a secularist nation. It's kind of implied, but Black and Hispanics have a strong faith. Okay, there's other issues in that community, but they have a strong faith as well. So it's a somewhat deterioration of the faith, but I think lack of family structure plays a part in that, because I was taught by my parents. I was very fortunate to have loving parents about that. Respect your elders. And again, there was that fear that was the cop on the beat, or the cops driving around your neighborhood at the time. You were scared of them, but you respected them all at the same time, and that is lost. As you cited in the classroom, Sharon, the kids run the classrooms. That never would have happened back in my day. And my day wasn't that long ago, but we never would have thought about that in the classrooms. The way these kids punching teachers, you see videos. I mean, there's a total lack of respect, and I personally feel it has to do with a lot of those things that I just said. You know, even Sharon, even families that are together, it might be a strong, loving, faith-based family, but given the economy and given what we have to do to survive today. Look at me. I work in radio. I work in all different hours of the day. I don't have a set time for dinner anymore. So I could use myself as an example. I don't have any kids, but I'm just saying there's families that fall under my umbrella that even though they're loving together families, they don't sit around the dinner table anymore at night. And that's nobody's fault. You have to work. You have to make money. You got to pay your bills. Yep. But there's something to be said about the family sitting around the dinner table every night. I think it strengthens not just the family, but it makes the younger people better people just to sit around and chit-chat. You don't have to be splitting atoms or anything like that, but to talk to mom and dad and talk about your day.
Yep, I struggled to stay home as long as my kids were, small, and I struggled, and we had one car, and we got through it, and then, then we were able to go on from there. But I just think it's a big breakdown in the home. I don't know. I just think it is, and I feel for these cops. I just feel really bad for them.
You know what? I feel very bad for them too, and sadly, they're not the last. I mean, this wasn't even, and not to take away. But if it's on a call, it's sad anyway. But at least they know that something might be coming. These guys are eating an egg roll. They're having their lunch in a Chinese restaurant, and this guy just shoots them through the window. He's dead now. They don't know. They have not released the information on whether he took his own life or whether he was killed in some other way. But it's all of those things, Sharon, and it's very sad. But there is a boldness out there, and it's very sad. And people look to the media, they look to leadership, and there's a responsibility that comes when you take these jobs and when you have these elected positions. So people have to be careful with what they say. But Sharon, WABC, my original hometown, my native hometown, thank you very much. We'll take a quick break. 855-400-SAVAGE. My name is Lou Pate, sitting in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back on Monday, live from Washington, D.C. Check out michaelsavage.com as well, even throughout the course of the weekend, for all your latest headlines. You are listening to The Savage Nation. Savage Nation, Lou Pate sitting in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back Monday live from Washington, D.C., so do not miss it. And throughout the rest of the show and over the weekend, you can always, because it's updated regularly, get your latest headlines at michaelsavage.com. Talking about the 2 Florida deputies who were shot dead in an ambush while eating Chinese food. This in the town of Trenton, Florida, which is near Gainesville in Gilchrist County there. A very sad story, but it got me thinking. We see the MS-13 gang member calling for a hit on cops in Hempstead, Long Island. And we saw a lot of anti-cop sentiment behavior during the years of the Obama administration from Black Lives Matter and other groups. And I wonder if this is emboldening people to, take out their angst against cops. Is it inflaming the temperament and causing people to lash out against police officers? Is there a war against police? Earlier we talked about the ongoing Russian dossier case, now ensnarling Comey and McCabe. We'll continue to take your calls on those as well. And I really wonder if Donald Trump is a trap is being set for him, that he's been told that he's not a target of the investigation. And on the immigration front, California cities, little towns like Los Alamitos being sued by the ACLU. Can these small cities in California prevail in their lawsuit against the state's sanctuary city policy? Well, we'll see. But let's get back to the phones. Abu at Dr. Savage's flagship station in San Francisco, KSFO. Welcome to the Savage Nation. How are you?
I'm good, and but I want to get right to the point. I want to start by saying there's two sides to the story, like everything else. But I want to say a shout out. I'm sorry to hear about the officers. It's sad to turn on the radio and then boom, there you go with that disappointing news. But the side I want to tell was my story, and there's something definitely wrong on both sides. I was about 12 years old, and we had just moved here to Oakland, California. From the Hawaiian Islands.
Okay.
And 1959, give you a couple of dates. And so we got here in 1959, and so about the 70s, I think I was about 10 or 11 years old.
Hey, Abu, I don't want to be rude, but you got to give us the abbreviated version. We're on time restraints.
It was Christmas, and I walked to the store. I just got a brand new jacket for Christmas. Walked to the store. Came out the store, was getting ready to go home, and two officers stopped me at gunpoint. For 11 and 12-year-olds, it was a hell of an experience. Didn't know why they were doing that. Couldn't understand it, and don't understand why everybody's doing what they're doing today. So I'm going to hang up on myself. It's a sad day when people put out contracts on officers and officers people, and it just goes back and forth, and it's perpetuated. So.
All right, well said, Abu. Thank you for sharing your story. We do appreciate it. Apologize for the lack of time, but these things happen. But thanks for sharing. Unfortunate story on that, and but that doesn't mean people should be gunned down. There's probably more to that story, though. Lou Pate here with you. This is the Savage Nation, filling in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back on Monday. You are listening to the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate sitting in for Dr. Savage. He will return on Monday, live and refreshed from Washington, D.C. You are not going to want to miss that. But remember, Dr. Savage is always giving you information. You can go to his website at any time, even over the weekend. It's updated constantly. MichaelSavage.com for all of your latest headlines. I'm here with Team Savage as we steamroll towards the weekend. Man, can you believe it's Friday already? And we want to talk with you. 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. We've got a lot going on. We've got the never-ending soap opera that is the Russian collusion story, but as the collusion turns, it's falling apart on the Democrats. Comey contradicting McCabe, McCabe contradicting Comey, the IG asking for a criminal investigation and possible prosecution into McCabe. Comey on his book tour, which might sell a lot of books, but not going very well in the public relations department. He's just not likable. And then the Comey memos come out where if you think McCabe contradicted Comey, Comey contradicted Comey. So that means that he lied under oath last March of 2017. So this all has made Donald Trump very happy today, as it should. But, what does a criminal referral into McCabe really mean? Has this mean that the Russia investigation has backfired on Trump's enemies? And since they're saying he's been cleared and told he's not a target of Mueller investigation, is that mean is this a trap? Are they trying to lull him into a sense of complacency and lure him into a meeting with Robert Mueller where he might slip up? There's just a lot going on. Or what about Comey? Is he going to face a criminal referral? He's got 11 congressmen already wrote a letter about him: Peter Strzok, Page, Loretta Lynch, Hillary Clinton, and others. Will Comey skate like Clinton did, or will he be prosecuted for releasing classified information? There's all of that going on. And we're talking about police officers, first responders there in the areas of crime. Is there a war on police in this country? Some people have shared their personal experiences, and we encourage you to answer that question. 2 innocent deputies eating Chinese food yesterday, murdered, assassinated, while having their lunch We've heard from a retired police officer earlier who said that there has always been contempt for the police officers from certain groups, and we saw a rash of assassinations back in the late 60s and early 70s, but now we're seeing it again in 2018, and there's been a few over the years. It's not about police officers being killed in the line of duty. That's sad enough, but just gunned down for no reason. Is there a war on police in this country? 855-400-SAVAGE. And we also touched on immigration. California cities are some are not enforcing the city sanctuary laws, the state sanctuary laws, and now they're being sued. I actually had a conversation with the mayor of Los Alamitos, California, and also a city council member there. They can't afford to go up against the ACLU budget-wise to fight them on this. But is there hope on the horizon for them? Because now you have bigger kids on the block coming, such as Newport Beach, not much bigger, but bigger, and San Diego County, California, voting to be part of the DOJ lawsuit against the state of California. But can these California cities, these small California cities, prevail? And you know what today is? Today is April 20th. You know that. But it's also 420. Fourth month, 20th day. Well, in the world of marijuana, in the world of weed, in the world of pot, today is a national holiday, an unofficial national holiday. They call it 420 Day, which is the code name for pot. So how do you think pot legalization in certain states has worked so far? Should it still be banned federally? It's a weird deal because in states like Colorado and Washington State and in California where it's legal, they can't use credit cards because it has to be all cash, because federally it's a crime. It's unconstitutional. But in the states, they have voted it in and made it legal. Now, whereas federal law trumps state law, I don't know how they get away with that, but they are. But if you're in a state where this is going on, and if you partake, we want to hear about it. This is the unofficial national holiday of pot legalization. So it's legal in certain states. How's that going? Or do you still buy it from a connection, we'll say? Some say that that's better than the store-bought stuff, and you don't have to pay taxes. That's another thing. Are the states skirting tax laws because they can't pay the feds for something they've collected taxes on that's illegal? So let's get back to the phones. 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Let's go to Lenny. Lenny, welcome to the Savage Nation. Thank you for holding.
I was on the police thing. I actually worked narcotics for years in the South, and the animosity for police isn't anything new in the drug world. I can tell you that. Like, it's a lot of gang initiations for years is to smoke a cop. That's nothing new. But I think it got really bad in the Obama years. He had law enforcement on their heels. It almost was like they were having to play defensive, a defensive game, even when they were 100% in the right. And then you had the press backing up the Obama administration in the attitude, empowering all these people, like, say, the kid in Missouri, hands up, don't shoot. That was super hot news, Title I, front page. But as far as the retraction of when the truth came out, the kid was in the officer's car trying to disarm him when he got shot. Nobody heard about that unless you listen to shows like this one or any other kind of conservative news where they're getting the truth out. But the mainstream media, who jumped on it when it was a hot story because of the quote-unquote oppression of some people, wound up being, well, no, that kid was a criminal. He was trying to kill the police officer. You didn't hear any of that. And that's one thing I think that needs to turn around to make the law enforcement environment a little friendlier toward them, or not even understanding or friendly, but allow them to do their job without fear of recourse whenever they're 100% within their rights to, like you said earlier, go home that night.
Well, Lenny, that's an excellent, all excellent points that you make there. Now, obviously, with the gangs, the initiation, it would go a long way, but you don't see it happening. They know that will bring heat upon them like they have never felt, and most likely it's bad for business and is going to put them out of business. So while they may talk a good game about taking out police officers, it's very rare that gangs take part in that type of activity. But getting back to President Obama, Lenny, you bring up a good point. Think about, I mentioned Black Lives Matter, and they were chanting in New York City, what do we want, dead cops? When do we want them now? Right. The mayor of New York, the governor of New York, they were silent on it. The media was silent on it. Yet Obama has representatives of Black Lives Matter to the White House for dinner. I mean, he has Sean Carter, Jay-Z to the White House for dinner. His whole empire, which is huge now, the foundation of it was he was a drug dealer back in the projects. So, you know, what is the statement that you're making to younger people? I'm hanging out with a guy who got his start dealing drugs. I'm hanging out with people who do not have a friendly, we'll say, relationship with police. At least one of their factions is calling for the deaths of cops, and you invite these people to the White House? It's very bizarre.
It's actually very telling. You know, it's very telling of somebody's position on something, especially a politician who likes to ride the fence, if you will. Just if you sit back and watch the actions, just exactly what you're talking about, the folks that had dinner with him, that says a lot about the man's character and where he really falls in his opinion on things. So, you know, people can think for whatever. They can decide for themselves. You don't have to really push the thought on them. All they got to do is be open-minded enough to stop and think about it. Like, well, that's right. They didn't have fraternal order of police there. They didn't have the families of dead officers killed in the line of duty. No, they had these former drug dealers that write songs about killing cops and smoking pot and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, there's a lot to be said about a man's actions, no matter what he gets in front and turns the talking head to. Just I ignore that and watch what they do. And you're exactly right.
The actions speak louder than words, Lenny. Hey, Lenny, thank you for your call. Do appreciate you listening. Let's head to Jacksonville, WBOB. Marty, welcome to the Savage Nation. How are you? Oh, we lost Marty. Give us a call back. All right, we'll head back out west to the mountains. KVOR, Colorado Springs. Colby, welcome to the Savage Nation. How are you doing?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm okay. What's on your mind?
I was just calling to chime in a little bit on the dispensary front of things.
Oh, well, happy 420 day to you.
Thanks. Yeah, man. It's an interesting day for...
You know, when I think you're in a bad cell zone there, but let me just tell you, when I lived in Seattle, there was a bridge called the 520 Bridge, and on April 20th, they would rename it the 420 Bridge. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you see all the road signs and everything across Colorado don't have 420 anymore for the mile marker. It's 419.5, so people can get out of control with it, that's for sure.
Now, where you own a dispensary, and where do you come down? Obviously, would you like to see it legalized nationwide, or do you want to keep it all to yourself in the few states that have it? Which would be better for business?
I think recreationally, if you're you can't hold it from everybody. Like, we get all these phone calls all the time from people who actually, you know, are using it as medicine when it can be applied correctly, and it's changed people's lives, you know. And I think it's definitely unfair for the federal government to turn a blind eye to the progress that it's made in certain people's lives medicinally.
Well, let me ask you this now. Is yours supposed to be sold only for medicinal purposes, or can you just sell it for recreational use too? How does that work?
The county that I'm in is medicinal only. Comes from a lot of influence politically, you know, which is fine. I think it's not a horrible thing. I mean, there's recreational cannabis in counties all around us, but Colorado Springs itself.
Okay, now you're there. You're cash business only because the banks will not work with you, right? I said before you have to do cash because you're violating federal law if you start using credit cards and things.
I mean, yeah, that's the general consensus, but I mean, there's definitely banks that are willing to work with you.
Wait, do you have a credit? Like, if I come in, do you have a credit card machine that a customer could use?
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So you have people charging and using debit cards.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a cashless ATM service through, you know, a bank, and it's definitely a.
But it's not one of them. It's not the. You don't have to say the name, but it's not the major banks. It's not your, you know, the ones we all know of.
No, mostly credit unions are dealing with that.
Okay, so then You're violating federal law, but no one's enforcing it, so you don't worry that you're going to get raided or anything like that. And business is good?
Yeah, I mean, business is good. It's definitely, it's a competitive market, and if you're doing it right, that's what really matters, because there's a lot of people out there poisoning people who are using it for medicine. It's just like anything else. I believe that it needs to be regulated and overseen on that side of things, and that it makes it safe for the people who are going to be using it for themselves. But I mean, overall, it's definitely, I'm not scared of being raided by any means. Like, there's bigger cartel grows and bigger people.
Colby, I'm short on time, which I apologize for, but I wanted one more question. You have a dispensary. Is it better? Is there more money in your dispensary or having one of the so-called pot farms? Or is it just a matter of venture capital and how much money you can get? And, you opened what you could afford, or how does it work?
To be honest, you're going to make more money selling scissors in this industry, but...
So you mean accessories?
Yeah. It's just like the gold rush. The guys making the shovels and pickaxes are making the dough,
Oh, well, okay. Hey, well, I wish you well there. Thank you for your candor, and happy 420 day to you. My name is Lou Pate. This is the Savage Nation. Dr. Savage will be back on Monday live from Washington, D.C. Check out your latest headlines at michaelsavage.com. This is the Savage Nation. It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will be back on Monday live from Washington, D.C. What will his experiences be while in D.C.? Who will he see? And he'll be sharing all of that here Monday on the Savage Nation. In the meantime, you can dial us up at 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. And you can go to michaelsavage.com over the weekend and get all of your headlines. We're talking Comey. We're talking McCabe. We're talking a possible trap for President Trump in the Mueller investigation. Who knows? Or has it all backfired on the Republicans? Listen to me. On the Democrats. We're also talking about immigration and small cities in California fighting against the big machine. Can they survive in their fight against the sanctuary city laws? Here's a shock poll for you. 59% of Californians want increased deportation of illegals. Can you imagine that? And that is not some conservative think tank. This poll comes from the UC Berkeley's Haas Institute for a Fair and Inclusive Society. They're a left-wing organization. So interesting there. And sadly, Donald Trump lost in an appeal. The U.S. Appeals Court says the Trump administration cannot, I repeat, cannot block funds from sanctuary cities. Unbelievable that these activist judges can undermine the presidency and the safety of you and your family in your community, regardless of where you are. We're also talking about the sad story of the two police officers in Florida, Gilchrist County, outside of Gainesville, that were murdered, assassinated while eating Chinese food, having their lunch. And I asked the question, is there a war on police in this country? We see anti-police sentiment growing. These men were killed in the line of duty, but there was no altercation with anyone. They weren't giving a ticket. It wasn't a domestic violence issue. They weren't raiding a drug den. They weren't chasing down some perpetrators who robbed a store or a bank. We're talking about two guys eating lunch, and a guy saw them in the window, 59-year-old male, and just shot them. And then we see the boldness of, but not braveness, of MS-13, a member there in Long Island directing members to, quote, take out a cop. And as we talked with one of the callers, we know it lends to your street credibility with these gangs if you're going to do that. But the heat that would be brought down upon them, they know that it's bad for business, so it doesn't happen. But in this era of social media, welcome back. It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage here along with Team Savage. They are doing an excellent job, as always, guiding me through. And we invite you to be part of the team at 855-400-SAVAGE. Dr. Savage will be back on Monday. He'll be broadcasting live from Washington, D.C. And right now and over the course of the weekend, go to michaelsavage.com for all of your headlines. we have a lot going on. As I said, 420 Day, the unofficial celebration of pot and pot legalization around the nation. It's not legal all over the nation, only a few states. We heard from a dispensary owner in Colorado, shared some of his stories. We appreciate his candor. So I'm asking you, do you think the pot legalization in certain states has worked so far? And should it still be banned federally? And also talking about, is there a war on police officers? 2 cops deputies in Florida assassinated yesterday while eating Chinese food. Really sad stuff. Let's get back to the phones. Oh, wait, before, I do want to comment on this kooky professor. I probably shouldn't, because I think she really wants the attention, but it's this English professor, Rhonda Gerard. She badmouthed Barbara Bush. She said, and I quote in a tweet, "I'm happy the witch is dead. Can't wait for the rest of the family to fall to their demise the way 1.5 million Iraqis have." And I think she was doing it for attention, and she got a lot of attention, and she followed it up by saying, "Oh, I forgot to say, I'm very happy too that George W. Bush is sad because his mom passed away." And I don't think this is so much an attack on although it is a classless attack, but I don't think it is so much an attack at the Bush family to get a rise out of them or to disparage them. She's using she's disparaging the memory of Barbara Bush as a way to get her name in the headlines, and it's worked. I'm talking about it. They're talking about it on cable news stations. But then she takes it to another level. She put her phone line on. Allegedly put her phone number online, which people should have known wasn't hers. And in turn, it was the phone number of the mental health crisis hotline at Arizona State University. Thus, it became flooded with calls. The professor bragged that she cannot be fired because she has tenure. Fresno State issued a statement saying, that's not true. We're not firing you, but yes, we can. And now people who donate to the college, to the university, are not. They are going to be losing a lot of money. I'm sure this stunt with giving out the phone number for the mental health crisis hotline in Arizona is not going to help that. But also, what if, those phone lines were flooded. What if someone had a mental health crisis incident and they couldn't get through? And then something unfortunate happened to them afterwards. Is the blood on her hands? I think this is the sign of someone who's an attention seeker. Contrived controversy is never really controversial. I do think it's someone who is getting what she wants, which is a lot of attention from talk radio, cable news, Twitter, and alike. I don't think Fresno State should fire her, to be quite honest with you. I do think they're stuck with her. To fire her would then put her name in the headlines again. And then down the line, like Melissa Glick, who was a teacher, a professor at the University of Missouri, the one who famously tried to get a school journalism student who was filming the protest removed from the campus by force. Remember, she said, "I need some muscle here." She got fired, but 6 months later she got picked up because there'll always be some halls of academia that will herald these people as some type of martyr. So she shouldn't be fired, because then she deserves to be fired, but she shouldn't be fired because then that would give her another headline. And then 6 months, 8 months, 9 months later, whenever it is, and she's hired again, she'll be in the news again. Remember that woman who said Barbara Bush was a witch? She's got another job. And she's just doing it for attention. She's not an attractive woman. She's very ugly. And I'm guessing she's very lonely. And that's probably what's driving this. I think she's probably a sad person. I'm not going to sit here and troll her like people do online and calling her a bunch of disparaging names. But I do think, well, I did just call her ugly, didn't I? But she's not an attractive woman. I don't mean that in an attack way. And I do think she's probably sad and lonely, and she's enjoying her 15 minutes. And Fresno State, you're stuck with her. Let's get back to the phones. Travis, Colorado Springs, KVOR. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Thank you for holding.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How can we help you?
Okay, great. Hey, I grew up in Colorado, went to the service, and moved away for a while, and moved back with my wife. And both of us had kind of libertarian leanings toward legalizing weed. We'd never done it or done any drugs, but she's an administrator at a high school, and it's been an absolute disaster to kids, and that's something I think it needs to get out there.
Now, what do you mean you never were into it? What you?
Well, I mean, I'm not naive. When I went to high school, I was surrounded. I mean, there were a lot of stoners around, but I never did drugs. I never did any weed. I mean, I was right in the straight and the narrow, but I kind of felt, well, let's try decriminalizing it and seeing if it works from a kind of a libertarian point of view.
Okay.
And I don't think it's worked at all, except for people who just want to get high.
Yeah, I don't think it's really worked either. I mean, but people then say, well, because basically what it does is it diminishes your senses, okay? And you can't think straight. You're slow to react to things. And then the argument for that, Travis, is people say, well, alcohol does the same thing. But here's the thing, Travis. I'm a beer drinker. I don't drink beer on the way to work. You know what I mean? I don't drink beer at work. And people who I know who smoke regularly, they're getting baked on the way to work, and they're getting baked at lunchtime, and they smoke all the time as if it's a cigarette. And it's just not the same because it alters you, whereas alcohol does too. But you don't see somebody, eating a sandwich at the lunch table outside the building, having a beer and eating a sandwich. I mean, some people go to liquid lunches, but you know what I mean.
Well, you can smell them drive by, and something that's also not usually taken into account is that it's disgusting. I mean, there are major streets in Denver. If you drive down it for miles, it smells like pot. And that's a sad thing, having been born and raised here.
Yeah, it is. It is a step in the wrong direction because I don't want to sound like a prude here, but like I said, it alters you. It alters you for the negative, and I wouldn't want any. If I owned a business in Colorado or any of the other states, I wouldn't want any potheads working for me. But if it's legal, Travis, you can't ask that question on an interview, just like you can't ask, do you smoke?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Travis, thank you very much. Do appreciate it. We'll stay at KVOR in Colorado. Go to Shannon. Hey, Shannon, you're on the Savage Nation with Lou Pate. How are you?
Hey, Lou, I'm doing great. I just wanted to say a couple things. I appreciate it when you're on. Love listening to you.
Thank you.
Miss Dr. Savage, of course, but you do a great job.
I even miss him, Shannon.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I learn something every time we listen to him, and agree with almost everything that he says. I'm calling from Colorado. I wanted to express very deep sadness and anger over the shooting of those two officers having their lunch. I agree 100%. There is a war on police, and I think it's disgusting. I think the way the country is looking at our service members, from first responders all the way through the military, is just really a sad thing. Because
where do you think that comes from? Where do you think it all comes from?
Well, I think a lot of it is the media and the propaganda that you see. I think, like what you were talking about with Obama, inviting people like that to the White House. A lot of people that are in positions of power seem to back that sort of thing and talk down about police and try to make them look as if they're just out shooting people, and instead of focusing on the positive. There's so many things that they do to help people, whether it's stopping with someone to fix a flat tire or walk an elderly person across the street. There's just every police officer I come across, they're always very polite. They're doing a job to help us and protect and serve us. And I think that it's probably the media mostly to blame because you just don't see the positive side of what they do for us as citizens.
I think you're touching on that. You're hitting the nail directly on the head there, Shannon, because the media, it's not only misinformation, it's not only making it salacious, more salacious than it is, because for ratings and to get more viewers, they are blatantly lying. They have pushed the narrative that police officers are hunting black males in America. And they pushed the lie of hands up, don't shoot. They pushed the Freddie Gray story. By the way, all of those cops that were tried in Baltimore had been acquitted, so much to the point that the charges against the others who were still remaining to stand trial were dropped. As we know, no case was brought against Darren Wilson. it's not, and that's not to say there's not a couple of bad apples out there. Obviously, there are. There was the one case, I believe it was South Carolina, where the police officer was just convicted of murder. But they are extremely rare. This doesn't happen compared to where the media will run for weeks with it, Shannon, weeks and weeks about these shootings, and then at the end when it all comes out in the end, 99.9% of the time they're wrong.
Oh yes. Yeah, completely wrong. And a lot of the time they don't even admit that they were wrong. And if they do and publish something, it's at the end of the article in very small print. You pretty much have to go searching for the truth. So
in the papers they put the correction in the bottom of C19, page C, section C, page 19 under the obituary. They put the little correction. They really don't. And let me just say this quick, Shannon, before we let you go, is remember there was the cop in Minnesota who shot the white woman, the woman who called the police. And when they pulled up in front of her house, she ran out to talk to them. The guy shot her through the door and killed her. He was a Somali refugee, Muslim, and the media didn't cover that at all. Police shooting, because it didn't fit the narrative of white cops hunting black males. And they totally didn't do anything about it. He was finally charged just about a month or so ago, but they didn't cover this because he was a Somali, he was a refugee who then became a cop, and he was Muslim. They wanted no part of that, so they ignored it. So you can't cherry pick. Either you're going to cover every police shooting the same way, or you're not. But they show their hypocrisy every time stories like that come up.
They certainly do. And it's really sad that we have to actually go searching for conservative, like the Conservative Tribune or like you guys, I mean, you have to actively search it out. And YouTube and Google and all these giants I can't believe they're getting away with actually squashing it and taking sites down for no other reason than expressing our views that don't agree with the left. It's just
Facebook censors conservatives. YouTube censors conservatives. A lot of Silicon Valley is very guilty of that. We saw that Mark Zuckerberg did not present himself in a well light, we'll say there. He definitely needs a new PR person who needs to coach him on there, and he needs to get out in the sun. He needs a little vitamin D, Shannon. He's a little pale. He was wearing his Seattle white, as I like to call it. But Shannon, thank you for the kind words. I think I speak for Dr. Savage when I say thank you for listening as well. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. 855-400-SAVAGE. It's the home stretch. 855-400-7282. You are listening to The Savage Nation. It's The Savage Nation. Lou Pate here with you, along with Team Savage, who has been doing a great job before, during, and even after the show. We do appreciate all of your help here. Dr. Savage will be back here on Monday live from Washington, D.C. And throughout the course of the weekend, go to michaelsavage.com for all of your latest headlines. As we are in the home stretch of the show, let's get to Monty, KVOR, Colorado. Monty, thank you for holding. I appreciate your time.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking my call. First thing I want to say is, if you and I were best buds, and as well Michael Savage, and we were out walking out there in the park or whatever, and somebody stepped out from the crowd with a gun, I'll tell you what, I would gladly give my life for either one of you. Well, that's very generous of you, Monty. But I honestly say thank you, but I don't know what to say. I like to think if someone jumped out, I like to think the three of us would take them down and nobody would be hurt. Well, if that was the opportunity, we could do it. That'd be cool. But what I called in to say, and now this may sound weird in the beginning, is that in a way I'm glad that Miss Girard.
The Fresno State professor you're referring to.
Rhonda Girard and right. Some of these other people. Johnny Depp made a horrible comment when he was in Ireland. When he needs to.
Was he? Wait, he was sober enough to make a comment? Jeez. Well, his lawyers just quit on him yesterday. I'm surprised.
Well, the thing about it is my comment is, let them keep on with their nasty comments, because I think you would agree when you hear this. I have proof that what they're doing is not working, because one of the reports that I've heard is that Hollywood at the box office has lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and so has the NFL with their...
Yeah, but the NFL's lost because of the kneeling, but Hollywood has lost probably in part because a lot of the liberal stuff, we see it at the award shows. But, Monty, the stuff they're putting out is garbage.
Well, you're right. You're right. But what my thought is the American people are waking up and they're realizing how unseemly, how wicked, if you please, if I could say that.
Yes, you can.
Nasty these people are, and how thoughtless they are. When Mr. Ard made that comment about the death of George Bush's wife, I mean, I just thought, that is so incredibly callous.
It is, but you know what? Monty, I appreciate your support. You don't have to give your life for me, but I'll tell you what. I say let them keep talking. Let them keep talking, and it shows their ignorance, just as you said. But thank you for your call. Do appreciate it. And thank you to Jim. Thank you to Clint. Thank you for Dr. Savage for having me. Great job, guys. I always enjoy working with you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Lou Pate here with you. This is the Savage Nation.
Savage.